Hello everyone and welcome to part 23 of my Enterprise Refit build. Today we're going to be talking about Aztec Decals. This is actually sheet 2 of the decals which go on the bottom of the saucer, so we're going to start there and work our way around. I wanted to give a few tips for people who haven't done these before I start applying them. First things first is I really recommend getting microset and microsol. If you can only find one, make sure it's the microsol, but both of them are really great. Microset goes on before the decal, microsol goes on after. When you do that, it really gets the decal to conform to the surface really nicely. So I highly recommend that if you don't have them, that you go get them. They can be applied with a paintbrush pretty easily, and they're really great for this kind of thing. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is the actual decals themselves. A lot of decals like these, what people forget a lot of times is that they are actually pictures. A lot of people try to conform the shape to the pie wedge rather than the image. What you're really trying to do is take the Aztec pattern and get it to line up with the hull plates. They actually have a very specific pattern that goes on the hull plate to make it look right. You can see down here at the bottom that goes on the outside part right here. So if you make sure and get everything lined up correctly, you'll be able to see exactly how they line up. Just keep remembering it's not about the shape of the decal; it's about the image on the decal that you're putting on the ship that matters. The other stuff doesn't matter as much. Some of the smaller ships, like the 1000 scale Refit and 1000 scale Reliant, those have Aztec decals as well. And on here you can see the image actually goes all the way to the edge of the decal pretty nicely. But on those it does not, and they actually have a little bit of an edge all the way around. And so what I do is I just take some scissors. What I used to do was, I saw online someone was doing them, and they'd actually lay the decal down and then take an X-Acto knife and trim off the excess. But what I started doing was, why do that when you can just simply cut the excess off before you put the decal down, because it's all about the image, not about the shape of the decal, is what I discovered. So yeah, as long as you remember that, you'll get everything lined up correctly, and you won't look back on it later and go, what did I do? Yeah, that doesn't look right. So be sure to remember those two things when you're laying them down. Also, they're delicate, but they're not, walk on eggshells delicate. You have to be careful. They do tear easily, but you can still maneuver them pretty well. If they start to get stuck before you're ready, just put more water on them and underneath them, and they'll move around. They float on water really nicely, and then once you get it where you want it, you can work on pushing the water out with a Q-tip or with a paper towel. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and lay a couple of these down on camera so that you can kind of see how it works. And these decals are super excellent. They're actually, the camera shows them darker than they look in reality. They're very subtle. They have a very subtle look to them, and when they go on, they actually look almost like they're painted. In fact, if you look at my old Refit, these Aztec decals were put down 6-7 years ago, and they still look perfect. Ooh, except really dusty. Maybe I should dust that. But anyway, you can see that it's a real subtle pattern all over the ship, and it gives it a really nice look. So keep that in mind. This was before I knew that they were images, and there's actually a few places on here where I look now and I cringe. So keep that in mind, that worry about the image, don't worry about the shape of it. So, and you can see that edge piece kind of where it goes all the way to the end in here. So, and also up here, you've got a frame of reference up here as well to kind of line everything up. So, yeah. So anyway, I'm going to get set up here. I need to go get some water. I also like to have a dull X-Acto knife around. Some people use like toothpicks, and some people use other things, but I use a dull X-Acto knife to kind of put it on the decal and kind of move it around it to get it where I want it, because I can actually, grab it. Just be careful not to poke through it. That's why you want an old dull one, one that's not going to cut the decal too easily. I also have a scribe tool that has this wonderful hook that I use to do the same thing. So I always have those two things around when I'm working with decals. And I think that's the basics. So I'm going to set up the camera here so that you can see, and then I'm going to put a couple of them down so that you can see how they go down. And we'll try to get all these on the bottom at least, so we can see how it starts looking with the Aztecing on. It's actually looking really good. Oh, one other thing. You really, really want a glossy surface. You want as smooth a surface as you can get. This actually has been coated with clear coat, with gloss clear, and it's been coated several times, so it's actually really buttery smooth. I did have one spot that was a little bit rough, and I just hit it with a little bit of sandpaper to smooth it out. But yeah, you want it as smooth as you can get it, because that prevents silvering. If I showed you my 537 Reliant, you would see, but that thing's silvered all over the place because I didn't know better at the time. It was only my second or third model that I ever did, so you've got to learn these things as you go. So, but yeah, make sure you've got as smooth a surface as possible, and your decal will adhere really well. If you think about silvering, it's just because when you have a rough surface, the decal can't mesh completely with the surface. It has little air pockets underneath it, and that shows up as sort of a silver cast. So you want to eliminate that as much as possible. So I will be back in a moment. I'm going to get set up with some water and cut out the first couple of decals, and we'll get her going. So I'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. So I started putting some of the Aztec decals down on this, and the first decal I cut out and used was this one here, and it crumbled into about 6 different pieces. It was incredibly brittle. I've only seen decals that brittle. The marking decals on this kit were actually pretty bad, but the worst decals I've ever seen were on the Vulcan shuttle, and it was just like that. I mean, you tried pulling it off of the backing paper, and you just hear it ripping all over the place. So I got it down as best I could. There are some spots where it didn't turn out, like right here, and a couple of other little gaps where it doesn't look quite right. But for the most part, I got it down. Then I tried it with a second one just in case that first one was a fluke, and the exact same thing happened. It just basically just fell apart. So what I did, since I have 2 sets of Aztec decals, I actually have 2 kits right now. I grabbed my other decal set and tried that for the third. And this one was the best of these 3, but even it tore in 2 places. So even it was a little bit squiffy. So I talked to Jerry at HDA Model Works. I was like, dang it, what do I do? And he said, don't you remember? You just spray them down with decal bonder, and that, fixes everything. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So I sprayed down the sheet with decal bonder, and then let it sit for 24 hours. And then I just tried this decal here, and it came off without ripping at all. So that worked perfectly. So this one has just been laid down. It just has its microsol on it. I always put down some microset, put the decal down, slide it around until I've got it where I want it, and then microsol. I do have to use a little bit of water. These decals are incredibly large, so you've got to use a little bit of water to get them laid down where you want them. But once they're down, they work pretty good. And you can see the pattern, actually, alternating here. And even though these 3 here were incredibly difficult to put down, the pattern is still correct on them. So, and I got them laid pretty much where they go. They're probably not perfect, but I was fighting against time and doom. So this one I got down exactly where it needed to be. So it looks spot on. So hopefully the rest of them go smoothly. So I'm going to put some of them on. The process is I dunk them in a little bit of water, which I have my bottom of a Coke bottle over there that I use for water. I need to refill it. And then I let the decal sit while I put microset down, and then I slide the decal off sideways. Don't go off top or bottom, because that's a really long distance for it to travel. So I always push it off the side on, which keeps it from, getting torn. They were fairly durable. I say that they were because the first set that I used on my original one, they were really durable, and they went on without any problem at all. So I'm not sure what changed on this, but yeah, if you're careful and you push them off to the side, and you've used your tester's decal bonder and all this other stuff, they should be good to go. Now, if you get the later kits, I've got the second generation kit. If you get the third generation kit that does not come with Aztec decals, Round 2 made the Aztec decals a separate purchase, although right now they're out of print. But if you can get a set, they're actually printed by Cartograph, and they're much better than these Chinese decals. So if you can get those are really, really top shelf. So I'm going to continue putting these down, and we'll see how it goes. But if I don't have any more problems, then I'll do one on camera so you can see how it goes on. For those of you who haven't seen how these things work, that would be a pretty good way to, kind of see. So I'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll see how it's going. Hang on. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So I've done about 2/3 of the saucer on the bottom here, and I'm kind of getting into my groove again, so I figured I'd show you one of the decals putting it on. So this is actually the 11th pie wedge that I've put on. These have been hit with decal bonders, so they're nice and strong. They're not going to fall apart on me. They haven't been falling apart on me. Everything's been great. So I figure I'll be brave enough to show one on camera. Hopefully it won't take too long. But basically, all you have to do is put the decal in water, get it nice and wet. You stick it to the side, and then I was using microset before I put the decal down, but I was finding that the decal was actually adhering too quickly, and I couldn't get it to settle down and move it around any. So I've just been using a little bit of water instead, kind of flooding it a little bit and making it so that there's a bunch of water on the bottom or on the saucer, so that and one of the problems is because I've clear coated it, it all beads up and rolls away. So you got to kind of just do the best you can. But I've been having pretty decent luck with it, regardless. So now, like I said before, you don't want to go forward or back putting the decal on, but you want to go to the side. And once it comes loose, it'll just slide right over to the side nicely. What I've been doing to make sure that the image is correct is I've been looking at the edge, the part that lines up right here, because you can see it when you lay the decal down. You can actually see where it needs to go, and then I line up the edge here. So you get those two corners, and then you're able to just grab it and very, very slowly and carefully slide the backing away. Boom. That's how it's done. So there's going to be a little bit of wrinkling to work out and things like that. What I tend to use is my brush. I just get a little bit of water on it, and then you can lift up the decal and kind of get it placed where you need it. Let's see how this looks here. It's actually laid out pretty close to where I want it, so we can just get it to lie down. Now, once you get it to lie down, you'll have to cut around things like the phasers and whatnot to get it to lie down properly. But for that, you just to get it where you want it. You can handle them, but you have to be incredibly careful, especially with decals like these, which are really brittle. You just kind of go like that. Gotta go one more time here. Didn't get it exactly where I wanted it. Close, but no cigar. Okay. There we go. And And it may look like it's a little bit worse, but I actually need to cut around the phaser here, which will get everything to flop down where I want it. Just use a nice sharp X-Acto and you'll get it exactly where you need it. There we go. Boom. Just like that. So, now that we have that all laid down, we can remove the excess decal film where things like the phasers are, and the, see there's one bit, and then around the marker lights, sometimes I'll just trim it away just a little bit just to get it to lie down. And I won't worry about a little bit of extra decal film. Sometimes I remove it, sometimes I don't. Well, that time I removed it, so that worked good. And then up here at the top, what I do is I just take my X-Acto and go right in the corner there and just tear it out. Sometimes you got to be a little ambidextrous. And there we go. And voila. There we go. And then we got another chunk down. So that's how it's done. And you use your paper towel, which can be, you know, damp or not damp, whatever, whatever works for you. And you just smooth it out. And there you go. You got another piece down. So you just keep going around the edge like that, and eventually you have an Aztec saucer. So it's starting to look pretty good. It actually really makes the details on this thing pop nicely. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video here, and when I come back, I'm going to have more of this Aztec. And I actually, in between all of this, I got my nacelles all masked and ready for light blocking. So that's next. So I'm gonna light block those and get those ready for lighting, and we'll get them all closed up, and from there we'll start the process of getting them puttied and sanded and painted and all that good stuff. So I hope you've enjoyed this series on decals. It's the Aztec decals are oh, one last thing. Make sure when you're done, put some microsol on it. I'm actually running really, really low on it. I didn't have very much, but you just take your paintbrush and go and you just wipe it on down. And what that will do is actually melt the decal into the plastic and allow it to conform to things like, you know, panel lines and things like that. So almost forgot to mention that. But yeah, microsol is your friend for decals. It'll actually make them wrinkle a little, and then they'll settle down. So you'll have to experiment with some other kits before you know, do your big refit kit. But I did a couple of 1,000 scale kits and things like that to get used to the decals, and once you get used to them, they're actually not too bad. So anyway, now we can end it. But anyway, thanks for watching the video on decals, and if you'd like to see more of this stuff, just let me know in the comments below. I hope you've enjoyed all this, and thanks for watching. See you next time.